Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Khorasan, the Caliph and the Corruptor. Today, let's discuss Dog Tribe and the Sufyani mind virus. Inshallah, soon I will go into much more detail, taking a holistic approach to hadith related to the Sufyani and to the Dog Tribe. For now, I would like to suggest that we not get stuck on an overly literal perspective based on limited data sets, but instead focus on some other aspects of these considerations. So we know that there are negative contexts related to the eschaton, related to the end times, with these phrases, with these terms and phrases, Dog Tribe and the Sufyani. And there are many different aspects to consider, but I like to focus in on what are the qualities, the traits, the characteristics of people, places, things, and ideas, as well as the socio-historical context, as well as etymologies, as well as cultural and linguistic cognates within the tradition and in other traditions, breaking things down to their grammar, looking at the macro, the micro, etc. So when we hear about Dog Tribe, rather than get stuck on a particular literal tribe that we may not know the accurate genealogies, and it may get into personal territory inaccurately and unjustly, I would like to suggest that the Dog Tribe are really wolves in sheep's clothing within the religious context, because dogs are domesticated wolves. One of the first examples from my studies of depictions of domesticated dogs, it comes from the Arabian Peninsula. Now, what's interesting is, we've clearly, humans have been domesticating wolves since very ancient times. They've been our companion animals, traveling across the steppes, traveling across mountains and deserts and plains and valleys, in settled environments, in semi-nomadic and nomadic states. Dogs are still quite close to us as guard animals, as companion animals, as helpers. They help us with various burdens, social burdens, work burdens. They've done that for so long, carrying sleds of people and objects across the tundra and the ice, across the grasslands. They've been protectors of our children and our elders, of our homes and our properties, of the animals that are under our care. They're very special animals. They're very complex, sophisticated creatures. Many of them are highly intelligent, capable of understanding many social and language cues, having vocabularies on the level of young human children in many respects, and communicating with us on some very deep, profound levels. And we should give thanks for our relationship with dogs throughout history, for our relationships. I know that within the Ummah, we have a conceptualization of dogs as being dirty creatures within the context of being in-home pets and companions. And there are a number, we can read, we need to be reading the outer and the inner, and think about how people, places, things, and ideas relate to our personal life in a meaningful and practical, applicable manner, as well as to the collective of humanity, as well as to creation. So we consider the outer signs, and one of the ways that we read is by looking at the person, place, thing, or idea, and we think about its descriptors. How would we describe it? How would we explain it? What are the adjectives, shapes, sizes, density, weights, colors, textures, etc. But we also look at their action words. We look at the behaviors associated with these people, places, things, and ideas. So with dogs, we have to think about, what we would consider positive, and we need to think about how we subjectively consider them in positive and negative ways, but also how to what is the more accurate objective reality that's beyond our biases, our prejudices, our misjudgments based on incomplete data, incomplete reading, incomplete assessment, improper discernment. So when it comes to dogs, they are domesticated wolves. They are generally pack animals. They can be very warm and affectionate with their own and with outsiders, including other species. There are many videos online where you will see dogs defending, protecting, and showing love and affection, respect, honor of other species, many other species. It's quite interesting how often they establish friendships and relationships with many different types of creatures. They're a very interesting species, and they're very closely connected to us and give us a good mirror for us to learn a lot of things about ourselves. As to some of the negative qualities, when you observe, or what we would consider negative qualities, when you observe them closely, if they perceive a creature to be their enemy or a threat, then they can be quite vicious. They are predatory creatures. They will eat, they will hunt, and they will kill individually, but often in a pack manner. They will go in and they will use strategies and tactics in order to take down much larger prey. And they will also eat carrion, creatures that are previously dead that are being eaten by, say, bigger predators such as, lions and tigers, etc. They can be highly competitive, very territorial, very protective of their own, yet they do a lot of infighting as well. And they will compete for females, they'll compete for territory, they will compete for food. They will collaborate and cooperate in a number of capacities. And these are what things that we would consider to be positive qualities, but we need to think in terms of their actual survival. They've got some really great survival mechanisms, and part of their alliances and their intimacies with humans have to do with survival mechanisms. And over time they became domesticated, and it's very interesting to consider. Maybe it had to do with us finding puppies that maybe wolf pups that then were adopted into our tribe, into our group, as we were in a nomadic or semi-nomadic state or a settled state, and we raised them and fed them and took care of them and loved them and petted them, gave them affection, massaged them, the things that would make them warm up to us, that they would look to as benefits and beneficial, and that they would want to, deepen their relationship with us and protect their relationship and cultivate their relationship with us and us with them. And so over however many millennia, we developed these very strong relationships with dogs, a symbiotic relationship, a mutually beneficial relationship. But dogs still, when they lose if they've been abused, or if they are somehow separated from the human community, it doesn't take a very long time before they become feral, before they return to their nature, their wild instincts. And this is I think this has been explored in books by Jack London. What was that book called? White Fang. I'm not remembering off the top, but anyway, about Buck. I remember I read that when I was very young. But this whole concept about, like a dog that had originally been kind of a very playful, even misbehaving, well-loved dog. Eventually he's sold away. He's taken from California or wherever up into the Yukon territory or Alaskan territories, somewhere up in the gold rush territories up north, and he becomes a sled dog, and he starts at the bottom of the pack, and eventually he becomes the alpha and the dominant male. And then he winds up it's the call of the wild. Yeah. And then he returns to the wild and basically rejoins the wolves, if I'm remembering correctly. And it's like, what does it take for, this is a reflection for us, how do we return to our instinctual, oneness with nature, what who are we in our natural state, in harmony with nature, because we're domesticated humans. And we've been enslaved humans and enserfed humans for a huge percentage of our lives, and been doing enslaving and enserfing of others, including other creatures, elephants and cats. Although cats, arguably, I don't know that they're ever truly not wild. Like they still maintain their wildness, and they're still free. And maybe we're the servants of them in many cases. If you've ever had a cat around, it's really, really amazing to just observe animals up close and at a distance. So when it comes to the dog tribe, we need to consider their characteristics. I remember reading that, so we found dogs, buried, mummified, in many ancient depictions, rocks and, rock paintings, cave paintings, et cetera, buried with our human ancestors in many areas of the world. But what's interesting is that one of the earliest depictions of a leashed dog, my understanding, was in the Nejd, down in Saudi, down near where the Sauds began to gain power, and that's quite interesting to me on a number of levels. And also, you think about the leash dog. I believe it was a saluki, so kind of the Egyptian breed of domesticated dog, utilized for hunting and companionship. They're highly intelligent, from my understanding, and quite fast, sleek creatures. But it depicts them in a leashed form, and so it's interesting when you look at a dog on a leash. To me, they resemble a puppet. The same way that you would have a puppet on a string. It's like you watch a dog walker. If you've ever seen one of these dog walkers in person or in videos or in movies where they're walking multiple dogs at once, it's quite amazing. There's high level skill, and they are the alpha. They are the pack leader in this case. But at the same time, they can move and manipulate that dog to go where they choose, to make a left, to make a right, to back down, to move forward, to be aggressive, to calm, to relax. So it's kind of similar to puppeteering. And so dogs can behave in this manner. And I would argue that in prophecy, where we see dog tribe, we need to consider the possibility they might be puppeteered, domesticated humans with dog-like qualities. And all that means, as far as hunting, predatory, fetch animals that go and, they do the hunting, they do the tracking, they go and they fetch the prey, they lead the hunter to the prey and participate in taking it down in order to get their little cut, their booty, their share of it. Dogs are often very not only very aggressive, but they can also be quite harsh. They with their own and with others, they will nip, they will bite, they will chomp, they will chew, they will grasp, they will hold firmly, they will shake, they will choke, they will go for the throat and take down their prey. I would argue that many humans behave in this manner, especially less refined people who are in a jahili state. Jahili is something that this state of ignorance is something that can be passed down genetically as well as culturally through nature and nurture due to energetic imprints. Anything that we do in a repetitive nature, if we go through a very intense emotional experience, whether it's very positive or very negative, such as a really profound physical emotional trauma, a near-death experience, a very dangerous situation related, for instance, to serpents, related to predatory creatures, predatory humans, which are some of the worst of creatures, and then also with a very positive, like a really an ecstatic experience, a very intense bliss. From, say, prayer or meditation, contemplation, from physical intimacy, etc. When this takes place repetitively over time or very intense, then it has an energetic imprint on us on a cellular, atomic, subatomic structure level, on a chemical and hormonal level. This is We'll discuss more about food and ethical, pure foods, and the energetic imprint, as well as the purification, holistic Toba and Tazkiyah process, and how this relates to energy imprints. I'm kind of going on a little bit of a tangent, but I wanted to reel it back in and go back to these predatory creatures, this dog tribe. I would argue that there are humans who have these characteristics and qualities all across the world who have, because we are archetypical creatures. And, some people, if people are not behaving in a spiritually mature, elevated state, in a spiritually evolved state, coming into their spiritual perfection, their human completion, their excellence, their beautification, then we are in various states of ignorance. Some people, and it's not linear. It's not like Darwinian linear evolution. It doesn't work that way from my understanding. But people are evolved in various ways at different stages of development and self-cultivation and group cultivation over time. And so I would say that when it comes to dog tribe, we have to consider these characteristics and qualities and traits, and how do they relate to humanity as individuals and collective, and to the human condition. And I would argue that many of these people who are dog tribe, they're behaving, in a very vicious manner. Whether it's maybe online, they're constantly attacking and destroying, and they're acting in a cannibalistic manner, energetically vampiristic, stealing of energy, destroying reputations, character assassinations. They're not building anything or creating anything beautiful. They're not cultivating beautiful relationships. They're very exterior. They're externalists. They're exclusivists. They often engage in various, very tightly structured ideologies. They're very confined in the way that they think, in the way they view, in the way that they feel. They are close-hearted, close-minded, close-eyed, close-fisted in many respects. They're very harsh. They can be nice if there's a benefit in it, and if you're within their in-group, or if you are their master. And I would argue that oftentimes they have, their master, if they're dominated by their instincts, by the satanic instinct, by the evil inclination, by the selfish inclination, then they are doing kindnesses and good, in order to benefit themselves and their small group and their immediate groups, their clan, their tribe, their affiliation, their various social networks and political networks. And so the dog tribe is not behaving in a spiritually mature, evolved manner. And this is very important to consider when we're thinking about this. So I would argue that the Ummah has had dog tribe since the very beginning. It has become very prevalent more recently. This is related to economic, social, and political factors. And so we need to consider that and also on a deeper level, we've got the wolf in sheep's clothing, which is part of dog tribe as well. The wolf in sheep's clothing, they have all the exteriors of religiosity. These are quite literally the people that Isa alayhi salam, that the Prophet Yeshua, the Messiah, peace be upon him, that he is critiquing very intensively. The wolves in sheep's clothing. The sheep are the people seeking that are being protected by the shepherds. These are fake shepherds, the wolves. They're often, they will take religious leadership roles. They will, and also dogs, we're not looking at the most highly intellectual people either. There are high-level wolves, that they have, a wild creature typically will have a higher level of cleverness and cunning than a domesticated one in many, many instances. So perhaps some of the higher level dog, wolves in sheep's clothing, the leaders of dog tribe might be more cunning, more clever, not wise, not more intelligent, not more intuitive. They might be very instinctual, but they know how to manipulate others through words and actions in order to portray themselves as religious, as righteous. And many fall for the deceit, and then their energy is devoured, and their reputation, their resources will be devoured by wolf tribe, who often engage in various expressions of banditry and piracy and criminality. They behave as a criminal gang. Often their leaders, it's more of a cultic type of situation. So we need to consider these things very strongly and what they mean. I would also argue, I'll go into this more in detail later, but the Sufyani, I want to put out there that it's really a mind virus, and it's contagious and spreadable. Perhaps it might not, perhaps virus isn't the best way of putting it. It's more of a parasite, perhaps. Parasitic, and I'm not saying that that is in a literal sense, but there is a contagion aspect. There's a spreadable aspect to it. And I would argue that this mind virus, it leads to a heart sickness, a heart condition that leads eventually through repetitive, negative, unhealthy, toxic thoughts, words, actions. It leads to a toxified, imbalanced state. And harms relationships around. So it harms the relationship within the bodily and mental framework. It harms the relationship within marriages, within close family, between parents and siblings, siblings and parents, with with friendships, with the social community, with the broader community. And the mind virus, this heart sickness, eventually leads to heart sealing. These people are more, they will pretend to be, they are given to mimicry. And it's on a spectrum. And so some people, they will still have authenticity and healthy intentions, and they get stuck into these networks, and eventually it negatively impacts their way of perceiving. Because the thing is, if you have a wrong belief system, if you have a wrong way of viewing the world, wrong view, then naturally you're going to have improper practice. And this means that you're going to think in unhealthy ways and in unhealthy repetitive manners that's going to have a toxic imprint upon the body. To curse with the tongue is to darken the heart. It is to, and it's to also toxify the bodily framework and the mental. Anything that impacts the body automatically impacts the mind. So it's going to impact the speech of a person who's affected or infected. It's going to impact their limbs, their actions, their behaviors toward others. And they're going to utilize systems and networks to push forward their own agendas. And it's going to automatically be harmful to the human individuals, social networks, and community. And it's going to be bad for unhealthy for all of creation, because we are to be protectors, guides, and guardians of all of creation, as caliphs of the earth, as inheritors of the earth, inshallah. We are not to be owners. We are not to be manipulators. We are not to be modifiers. We are not to harm. We are not to enslave. We are not to act as tyrants. We're not to downpress, to oppress, to suppress, to repress. So these are things to consider. We will go into much more detail, and we will take a more holistic approach to this, inshallah, and approach things including, the various etymologies and cognates and various contexts in order to better understand these things, so we can better understand the context of the time and the space and the place where we are moving through this, where we are in space and time. And so we're going to consider the context more in detail, inshallah. But for the time being, just consider the dog tribe is pervasive. It's widely spread within humanity. And one of the remedies for this is to evaluate, are we behaving in any dog-like or wolf-like manners? Are we behaving inauthentically? Are we behaving unjustly, dishonestly toward ourselves? Are we behaving negatively and toxically within the context of the body and the mind, within ourselves, to ourselves, toward others? Are we behaving wrongly, unjustly, disrespectfully, I should say? And we counter all these negative dog tribe behaviors by coming into our true maturity, by going through holistic Toba, Tazkiyah. We take we go through a medical diagnostic of ourselves by looking at the symptoms. We're looking at the problem, the root problem. We're looking for the symptoms and the root of it. We are looking to see the prognosis. What's the long-term ramifications, negative or positive? Can we come out of it? What's going to happen if we don't do anything about it, or we continue down this negative route? Then the prescription that is going to be thoroughgoing, total. This is the Tazkiyah process. And then after that, it's protection and prevention and sadaqah, where we need to share and be of benefit, inshallah. So may we see dog tribe for what they are. May we see the Sufyani mind virus for what it is. May we protect ourselves. May we be shielded by Allah, and guided by Allah, and protected by Allah, and purified by Allah. You are much loved and well appreciated. Until next time, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.